This is the Bailey Speaker Series. Dr. Phil Schmidt. Dr. Schmidt is with Western Governors University. And let me just say a couple of words about that. That's what intrigued me about bringing Dr. Schmidt here. Is that Western Governors University is the largest nonprofit online competency-based university in the world. They have 24,000 students and they're growing at 30% a year. Dr. Schmidt says that he didn't found the organization, but he came in very soon after they started. They've been in business 14 years, I believe, and he started 10 years ago. They were very small. He said all of the faculty could fit on one lift chair. Was that eight total faculty?
All their eggs in one basket.
The Western Governors University, we'll go into more detail, but is a university that was started by 19 Western governors of states, and it's moving eastward.
Like to Arkansas.
Yeah. He's here scouting. Indiana just signed up last year. The governor of Indiana signed up Western Governors University. So they have students around the world, and they have tackled a lot of the problems and solved them, I take it, that we're going to solve or have to solve. Dr. Schmidt, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. So, you know, I'm very big on context. I'm a mathematician, so I can't start, even though this is a short workshop session. I'm assuming you'll all be at the keynote where I'm going to be able to go into a lot more detail. But you need to know a little bit more about me and the university for any of what I'm going to say right now to make sense. So, as Steve mentioned, Western Governors University was started by the governors of 19 Western states, and that's a little tricky because California was not part of it, though they've signed on since. But Indiana and Guam, those two governors were part of it. So it was, so there were actually 18 technically Western states, 17 of which were in the original compact, plus Indiana, and no one can remember how Indiana got involved in this. And Guam is anyone's guess. But anyway, they've stayed with us, and so we love them because it's such an interesting thing to be able to say. Guam is one of the Western governing states, you know? So the university was created to solve the following problem. I'm a mathematician, so I use the math example, but you'll get, you can extrapolate from it. So you are an adult, you're married, you've got a family, and you decide you want to become a teacher, and you know that there are jobs for math teachers right where you live in rural Montana, 350 miles away from the nearest degree program in math education. End of story. There's no way that this person can commute to Bozeman, to Montana State University, to get this degree. It cannot happen. And the governors, the Western Governors Association, they were just sort of basically sitting around talking, and they, two governors in particular that were instrumental in this, the governor at the time of Colorado and the governor of Utah, were particularly stricken by this paradox. That is, they were governors of states in which there were many, 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 many employment opportunities. They couldn't find people from within the state to fill the jobs in areas like mathematics, science, special ed, ELL teaching, IT and business allied fields, and probably most critically, nursing. So the university received from the federal government a Star Schools grant to, in essence, start itself up, a $10 million grant. But part of that grant was to create a teacher's college and in particular offer licensure programs in math, science, special ed, and English language learning. And even though that's not what the university started with, because when you start a university, you cannot begin with a teacher's college because you can't recommend anyone for licensure because you're not regionally accredited. Is this a SACS state, Arkansas? What's the regionally accrediting body?
North Central.
North Central? Okay, so it would be like, you and your friends opening a college in Arkansas and having students come in to become teachers. And then when they finish, what do you do with them? If you don't have North Central and you're an Arkansas institution, you cannot recommend for licensure in any state in the country. So, to create a university and create a teacher's college was a huge deal. I don't know how else to say it. Because you have to go through all the process of getting regional accreditation, but in the interim, there's not much for anyone to look at. So how do you collect the data that you need then to convince accreditors that you're on the up and up as an institution? It's a catch-22. I'm not going to go into those details, but the important piece is to understand that the university was created to be, by these governors, to be entirely online, never for profit, and that immediately set it apart from institutions like Phoenix and Walden and Kaplan and Capella and DeVry. It immediately set it apart because the goal was never to accumulate cash, never to be on the stock market. Bottom line was never to be an issue. And to be entirely competency-based. That's in the charter of the university, meaning that degrees would be awarded based on what students could demonstrate they had mastered, rather than being based on seat time. We do not measure seat time. So that's how the university started. Entirely online, entirely competency-based, and not-for-profit. Those were the three critical components. And the mission and the goals of the university have flowed from those three pieces from the very beginning. So, as Steve mentioned, we have students in all 50 states and around the world, though we do not admit international students. The students we have abroad are students on army bases, like in Wiesbaden, Germany, and in Iraq, in combat, in Afghanistan, etc. We don't recruit international students. We have programs in teacher education, business, IT, and the health professions. Most recent programs are the nursing program and health informatics, which are just exploding with enrollments. So the university has gone from roughly 500 students when I got there 10 years ago to 24,000 plus right now, and we're growing at the rate of roughly 30% a year, though the percentage is going to drop because we don't want to grow boundlessly. We admit students every month, and so when a student enters, her term begins, and every term is 6 months long. So we have 12 cohorts every year. Get it? No part-time students, and no part-time faculty. So all students are full-time, all faculty are full-time. So it's exactly the opposite of the online model you probably are used to from the other entirely online institutions, which are almost all adjunct faculty, and most students are part-time. So it's exactly the opposite model. Okay, so before I start, any questions about that?
Why no international students?
That's a good question. The question he's asking is, why don't we recruit internationally? The problem is, and we've been pushed on this by, for example, Spain has asked us to have students, and Bermuda, of all places, because in areas that involve a licensure, it's very difficult to control the clinical and preclinical experiences abroad. So, what we don't want to do is say we'll recruit internationally but only for some programs. If you remove teacher education and remove health informatics and remove nursing, those three, those are all fields that require an exam, licensure, clinicals. Then what you're left with basically is the rest of the health professions, which is minimal. Business, where the business model can be so different abroad, and the other IT fields. And it would not be a healthy way to recruit. So until we can figure out what to do about the clinical experience, we're just going to hold off with international recruitment. And the fact is that we're I don't want to say overrun because the head of enrollment would. But we can't really handle all the continual interest. And part of that, I think, is the tuition model. We're $2,800, $2,850 for a 6-month term. So $5,700 a year, which is very inexpensive. And we have certain programs that no one else is doing entirely online. For example, we're the only ones where you can get initial licensure in math and science online. Chemistry, physics, the geosciences, biological sciences, and high school mathematics teaching. We present the entire mathematics major online. We're the only ones doing that. So, we have a captive audience in a particular sense, plus we're reasonably priced. Plus, our programs are very robust. They're very well thought of in the field. In teacher education, we were the first online institution to get NCATE accreditation, for example, something that people told us we'd never be able to do. Any people familiar with NCATE? You have an idea on this campus, right? So you know. Well, people said, oh, don't even bother. You'll never be able to do it. So, there's the reputation